Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Connected Live. I figured I would do one today because a lot of people are home because of the snow here in Oklahoma. So the folks that are following me in Oklahoma have something additional watched besides the weather. And today's topic. So something that really kind of haunts me, and I see it on occasion and I have thoughts about it, and then I keep my mouth shut. Or I forget about it until I see it, it kind of pops up again, and then I get upset about it. So I figured today I would address it because I have plenty of time to remind myself to do it. So animal communication. People en masse are still treating it like an event or an entertainment. Now, when I say an event, they have a problem with their pet or training or behavior, or they simply want to know more about their pet and are curious, and this is something that they may or may not have ever thought of doing before. And so they start looking up pet psychics or animal communicators, and they go to one, and it's an event, right? They have this event, and they think that it's a one-time deal. And then the other example is people find out that an animal communicator or a pet psychic are going to be at a store, and the dog store touts, Animal Planet, or they tout some name of person who's written about books and animal communication, maybe who's done some radio shows, and again, people line up at a store to get a reading on their pet. Both paradigms are very archaic. I prefer the ones that people do in private. Those are better than, say, somebody showing up at a bar or at a pet store, at an event, if you will, with a lot of people. It's kind of like going to a therapist or a doctor or a lawyer and doing a consultation in the middle of a coffee shop. You're just not going to get the best out of any professional in a public environment, especially with people lined up out the store, probably having their dogs with them or their pets with them, which is never a great idea either, because you get people in mixed company who most of the general population still doesn't understand about proper animal behavior in public, which is why so many places don't allow pets, and the places that do get so sick and tired of people who don't understand proper pet behavior or training, and then they ban it altogether. So I'm going to address both, and then I'm going to, which I kind of have addressed both, but I want to say my most important message is you can't do something like that in public and expect to get all the right answers and everything that you actually need for your pet. And then in a private session with an animal communicator, that seems to be like this one-time event as well, but at least it's done in private. Are you choosing an individual that understands how to make all the connections with what the pet is trying to say? Do they understand psychology of the species, the breed, and the individual? Do they understand the psychology of the person, the human, and yes, their individual psychology, their individual issues? Because you have to be able to do all that in order to effectively communicate, and you can't be attached to outcome. Pet psychics have a tendency to, like other psychics, to want to show what they know, because they're desperate to be believed in. So they're looking for the drama. They're looking for the something to go, ooh, ah, at. And that's not necessarily what's in the pet's best interest or the owner's best interests. So you have to go in as a professional doing this, devoid of attachment and devoid of the chip on your shoulder of trying to prove something. If you're in the profession and you're well respected and you've got credibility, not a lot you've got to prove, because there's the depth of your work, and every single time you prove your work, And it stands, kind of like my 20-year career, it stands on its own merit. I don't have anything to prove. So when I work with clients, I work with them to specifically figure out what is it that they need to know. Let me back up a little bit. What is communication for? When we communicate, we're trying to promote understanding. And when we're trying to promote understanding, it does have an effect on your energetic, your emotional, and your physical well-being. So animal communication is really about health, right? It's emotional health, behavioral health, physical health. It's health all the way around. And just because I can talk to an animal does not mean I am qualified to be able to maximize that communication for an animal's health and for a person's health. Because when you go to animal communication, we really need to switch the philosophy from being about an entertainment to what is it really that I'm trying to get at here. And thank God I was in business for over 15 years because, we would talk with clients. I was at a top 10 pharmaceutical ad agency. I know, right? And the clients would say what they think they needed in their campaign. And then that's when our work began, because what the client thinks they need and what they actually need are two different things. And this was also in the training and development when I was an executive there. You really have to get at what what a client thinks they need and what they actually need are the same or two different things, and then bring the client around to the understanding of what they actually need. So you have to give them the why, meaning you need to be very good at your job. That's what I do. When a client comes to me and they'll tell me what they think they need, whether it's for them or their pet, I'll be like, that's nice. And I will lose my attachment and lose trying to convince them of anything because, again, I don't come from ego. I come from confidence and love. So I'm really about what's best for the person and what's best for the animal. And I ask a lot of questions like a doctor or a therapist. And then I find out actually what the issues are. And 9 times out of 10, the client was, this thing turned out to be a totally different thing than I thought. And then any question they had about my fee just goes poof, because this is not an animal communication session. It's about health and well-being. And animal communication should not be an event. It should be something that's done regularly. And so, that can get expensive, right? So people are sitting there and going, well, you're not exactly inexpensive. And I said, no, I'm very good at what I do. And I'm no more expensive than, I'm probably middle of the road, really good lawyer. I know lawyers are charging $500-$600 now per hour. Oh yeah, and I attended law school and I speak 3 languages and I have all the business background and I can make all the connections. So I'm well worth my fee. The initial fee is sometimes because I'll take 2 to 3 hours and don't charge extra. And then the follow-up fees, again, sometimes I go overtime and I don't want to get into the nitpicking of put another quarter in the slot machine while I finish up. I don't like to get into that, so my fee is my fee, but it's because I'm really good at what I do. And I know how to make all the connections for health. But when I say to people it needs to become a regular event, after 3 sessions, sometimes even after the first, typically clients will start to hear their pets better. Right. Kind of the work that I do is able to open up other people to the other listening skills that they have. I say other listening skills because I don't want to call it their psychic ability, because it really goes into the realm of magic and woo-woo, and it's none of that. We actually all have these communication skills that are beyond the 5 senses. It's just that society has brainwashed us into thinking we are not connected. We actually are. And we're not disconnected. The people who are asleep are not disconnected. They don't need to be reconnected. They need to be woken up to their connection. That's it. And sometimes with 1 session or 2 sessions, and sometimes 3, which is the normal that I recommend for first cases, they start to hear their animals. And a lot of what I have to share with them is lose your ego. If you really want to hear your pet, you've got to discern what it is that you want versus what they really want. And then there's the other piece. Sometimes they don't know what they want. Yeah. So there are people out there right now that do animal communication work with no idea of how to connect that to emotional health, physical health, and energetic health. And they'll tell you information that they may get pieces right that are real wows, like, oh, my dog totally does that. Oh, this is so cool. Oh, God, I hate those reactions. I want to slap people. But they're not going to get the nuances of really what's the bigger issue, which is what I specialize in. And then that's why my work is so effective with behavior change, behavior modification, because I use emotional literacy not only with my human clients, but with my animal clients. So emotional literacy for animals, ELA, some of you have heard me talk about this before, I have applied successfully to other species within the context of their species. No, they're not human, but they function very, very similar to us. And so if you don't give them the why, you need specific behavioral change, more than likely you're going to have trouble getting it. And the food and the pets on the head are not enough for the really smart animals. The really smart ones are going to challenge you constantly because it's like a smart kid or even a person in training and development at a corporation. Why do we have this new procedure? Why are we doing this? How does it make my life better? The why becomes inherently important to gaining agreement. And so when people work with me, they're like, well, I've worked with other animal communicators, or I've worked with people who do Reiki, but they don't do what you do. And I was like, no, because they don't know how to make the connections from the energetic, the emotional, to the physical. And the emotional is a massive breadth. I mean, as far as you have to understand the species, the gender, the breed, the background, the individual, the psychology of the individual. Do they have trauma in their background? I mean, there's so many layers to the onion on the emotional source of disease or the emotional source of behavior issues that simple talking at or gaining information from the animal is not going to be enough. And animals don't know more than we do. There are people out there that say that all the time. The animal knows more than you. And you guys have heard me talk about Balder, case in point, my own German Shepherd. I have an East German German Shepherd who is incredibly intelligent. Balder, 3 top holistic vets that are DVMs and do holistic work, cutting edge in the field, people that were pioneers that are famous in this country, one still teaching at University of Pennsylvania veterinary school, okay? He fooled them all and rejected every single treatment because his whole stance was, I can fix myself. I don't need you. Very stubborn, has nearly died 3 times because he's so stubborn. It was only in the 3rd round of illness that he allowed us to see what was actually wrong with him. How far can an animal actually take that behavior? Very far. His predecessor, Jin, who was his great uncle, Jin was ready to transition out at 9 years old. And around 6 months before everything went critical, I kept looking at my very famous vet friend who zoonotic diseases, works for the State Department. I mean, top vet. We're not talking woo-woo vet, top vet. Saying, Gabby, you know, I really believe in your work, kid, but you're wrong. He's just getting a little older. And I said, I would bet my own life that this dog has cancer. He is hiding it, and it's driving me crazy because I know it's there. So we did scans, we did blood work, we did everything, nothing. So for 6 months, I kept saying, he's not just slowing down. I know what that looks like. I've had dogs and animals my whole life there's something more wrong here. And I remember one day walking through the Hollywood Hills with Jen. He turned around and looked at me and very clearly said, "You are not going to stop what's happening. It's not your choice. It's my time. I won't let you stop this." And I remember looking at him, I was like, "Oh, you little shit." And I was so angry with him. And I marched his black backside, because black German Shepherd, black hairy backside, back to the vet and did more scans. 0. And he was sick. I could see it. I could feel it. Even my vet started to say, "I see your point." And I'm like, and he said, "But he's clean. The scans are showing nothing. The thermography was clean. The MRI was clean." I mean, I dumped thousands into this because I thought I was crazy. So a week and a half later, after the last round of scans, he starts peeing blood in the morning. And I call my vet friend, who's also the doctor, and I said, "He's peeing blood." And he said, "Gabby, this is just a urinary tract infection. But bring him in because I know you will not be happy because you think something else is wrong." So we did everything again. He had cancer from his brain to his spine, to his liver, to his spleen. I mean, from the tip of the dog in the front to the tip of the dog in the back, completely riddled with cancer. And my vet friend and the internist at one of the biggest veterinary hospitals in Southern California looked at me, blinked their eyes, and said, "This is not possible that this suddenly developed full-blown in 2.5 weeks." Yes, it is. When you get an animal that is that advanced and that unwilling to show that they're sick, you're going to get that kind of stuff. Now, I felt it, but I couldn't get a handle on it. So, and it was very early in my career. So I was questioning myself left and right because anybody who knows me and has worked with me, I'll send you to the vet to get the blood work to prove what I'm saying. If I think your dog or your horse or whatever has Lyme's disease or EPM or whatever I think I'm getting, I'm going to send you to get blood work because I want proof too. It's just the nature of my analytical self. I mean, I might be highly intuitive and I've never been wrong in 20 years, but I'm still the type of person that will collaborate with Western medicine and want proof of my work. Well, Jin did pass. He passed within a week and a half of peeing blood, and it was heartbreaking for me. That was an amazing dog. But it showed me how much either the dog can hide or does not think, like in Balder's case, that they need help. Can animals reincarnate? Yes. Case in point, Balder is Jin come back, so we have a similar issue again in this life, hiding stuff. But he's actually learned and evolved a little bit more because in the end, on the third go, when he was going to die, he had to make a choice. Accept help, show what the base or the main issue is, and allow us to help you if you want to stay. And then he decided to stay. And now, as people saw from my earlier video today, he's a fatty. He's doing really well. But he has to be managed very carefully because, he's worn his system down over the years. And yes, he's 9. So with that said, when you want to do animal communication, please, I would rather people work with me because I actually know what I'm doing. And so it's not just a selfish, go, work with me type thing. But I just don't know anybody else that makes the connections that I do. I know that there is a person out there that's a formal client that is using my language and is claiming to do what I do, but they actually don't, and they're very delusional and very ego-driven. So if you see anybody using connection, that's all done in a very wrong way. But how I do it is I connect the energetic with the emotional, with the physical, to create real change. I mean, I've had emergency situations with a rescue, a very well-respected lady that understands Tibetan Mastiffs like nobody else's business. She's the only Tibetan Mastiff in the United States. She's very well educated. She does Reiki in her own right, came to me as a last-ditch effort to save this dog who was going to be put to sleep for aggressive behavior. They had no choice. And she called me up, she booked the session, and I said, my God, I don't know if I can fix this in one session. You've come at the very last minute of this dog's life. And so I had to get into the psychology of the dog. I didn't have to just tell him or find out what his problems were. I had to actually create that inside change for him to want to change. And he had no real reason to want to change because people had really betrayed him. And so he had no faith. And so in one session, I had to figure out how to give him faith in people, promise him that it would be different. And I trusted this lady to make it different for him. And let him know that dying and being euthanized was just not the best way for him. And even though I did all that and I got into more of the psychology and I spoke to the woman who runs the rescue for 2 hours, I wasn't sure. And she called me up the next day and gave me this beautiful testimonial because we saved his life. The aggression stopped and he made a choice. Because remember, there's also free will. There's no amount of woo-woo or energy work that's going to work if you don't have the compliance of the individual that you're working with. There's free will, free choice. The individual has to choose to heal, whether it's a human or another species. So that's another one of my specialties, is that the energy work that I do is not necessarily about wagging my finger at an individual, whether it's a human or another species. It's more about creating that change internally with the subtle energy to make it the individual's idea to change for the better. So it should not be an event animal communication. You should be maximizing your communication. And what's interesting is I really know I've succeeded in life when I do animal communication and health work for a person and they come back and tell me a lot of the communication skills that you've taught me. Yes, I teach communication skills as part of when I'm doing the session, and I have people write them down because they're invaluable. And I know I'm really successful when the person said, do you know those communication skills actually work with people too? And I use them on, my spouse, or I use them at work, and I've been a lot more successful with blah, blah, blah. And I start laughing and I'm like, yeah, they're life skills. I just wish they would teach them in school to middle school kids. It's called emotional literacy, and there are communication skills and action steps that go with them. And if you just taught people these things, life would be so much better. There would be less divorce. There would be less fights. There would be less misunderstandings. And so I teach people to do this with pets, as well as opening up their other skill set naturally so that they can listen. But I also tell them and share with them that you have to lose the ego in this. You have to really be open to maybe hearing some things you don't want to hear and getting feedback that you don't want to get. Just like with people, whether you're at work or from a partner, whatever it is, from family, we have to be open to feedback. And so I also help in these animal communication sessions, help people with a feedback paradigm that doesn't put them in emotional reaction so that they stop listening. And I also teach them to do that with the animals. Okay, so that is my Connected Live for today. You can reach me at connectedenergyhealing.com. That's connectedenergyhealing.com. Know that your appointments, I say an hour, but they usually go over an hour. I say an hour just because that's my hourly rate, but I usually go over. And when I go over, I don't charge more. I just get it done. So I do try to keep it within a certain time period because I do have clients throughout the day. But seriously, if you have a pet and really want to make your life better, their life better, as well as the health of everybody in the home, having animal communication skills is actually really important. And so when you work with me, you develop those skills, and then clients will sometimes not need to work with me for a couple of years, or some clients, because they do understand how important the energetics are, they'll work with me once a quarter if they don't have a critical issue going on, just to check in and make sure everything is where it needs to be, or that they shouldn't be checking things. And they'll find that when they work with me, I'm more directed in what tests they need. It's not a shotgun blast. So I had a client that had a horse that was very ill, misdiagnosed by vets. And after spending probably over a year of illness with the horses and $10,000, they came to me. They didn't gripe about my fee. Just because you spent $10,000 with vets doesn't mean that then you don't choose to work with me, because I actually am a professional as well. I can't work for free. I support a whole household. So I just loved it that this person, took responsibility for the 10 grand that they had already spent and knew that they were getting a quality referral working with me, did not challenge me, did not ask me for a discount, just did it, because they are responsible with their animals. And I love this person for that. And I said, you're going to have to do 2 more tests unless the tests were already done. And you're going to have to do Lyme's and EPM. The tests that the vets had done were pretty much everything under the sun except for Lyme's and EPM. So it was heartbreaking to me to say I needed to spend a little bit more money on tests. But I was very directed about it. I said Lyme's and EPM. And I think it was like $500-600 total, not $10,000. My directed tests were correct. And everything else that the other irresponsible vets did was wrong. So they charged her 10 grand. And, there was no discount, no money back, no, I'm sorry, nothing. Just took her money, and the horse continued to decline, and then put the horse after a year in such a bad situation that when the numbers came through on the blood work for the Lyme's and EPM, I even said, knowing what I know about blood work, this horse is on its last legs. I don't know if we can save it. And we had to go for intravenous meds because the pill meds weren't going to work, and I knew it. So again, it was very directed. I just wish I'd gotten a hold of the person before they went to the veterinarian, because vets that are just purely Western medicine are going to do gunshot blast tests. They're going to charge you between $5,000 and $6,000, and it will not be directed. And you will spend and spend and spend, kind of like what happens in a human hospital, but yet you have health insurance that covers some of it or most of it. That's not true with pets. So what people have learned after working with me in horrific situations like this, they come to me before they go to the vet, because I'll tell them most likely what tests they need, so that they don't end up with a bill that's $10,000 to $5,000 and then don't have enough for treatment. I just had another person referred to me through the rescue, and their dog has cancer, and again, $5,000 to $6,000, undirected tests. And it was recommended that the person work with me, and I was in this group chat thing, and the person just said, I don't have the money, and I can't do this. I can pay her $200, but that's it. She'll have to work for that. And I was like, no, that's not my problem. And I can't bend that way. You don't go to a vet and say, I can't pay that, so I'm not going to pay you. So treat people that do what I do with credibility as you would a doctor. And if someone has the level of credibility that I do, and you check all their references and testimonials, have faith in that. There's no such thing as a perfect science, but someone who functions with an integrity is going to do their very best for your animal because they actually care. A lot of these vets, how do vets and Western doctors, MDs, make money? Hospitals make money. The 2 money-making things for hospitals, whether it's a vet's office or a human, tests and biopsies. Why don't I like biopsies? Because they go into your body, they cut into it, potentially a mass, and if it is cancer, they're releasing cancer into the rest of your body. Or infection. No one thinks about this. I do, because I learned from the best. And so if I can find a way for a biopsy not to be done, I find it. Because I know that's not the way. Because if you've got an infection or you've got cancer or something that can be leaked into the rest of the body that is contained within the mass, we're going to try to keep that mass whole and kill it from within rather than poke a hole in it or take a piece of it and the whole thing go all through your body. 2 biggest money makers for hospitals, whether it's vets or humans, never forget it. Tests, biopsies. So why not work with somebody who actually does animal communication from a health perspective, from a medical intuitive perspective, that can give you directed information about what to test. Doesn't mean that you may not have to spend a lot of money on treatment, but it means we can save you some money in other aspects, like that woman with the horse, $10,000 and a year of her horse going down the tubes. And again, the vet there's no way to hold this vet accountable for their serious lack of professionalism, in my opinion. I had to send a vet that I know over there. Thank God they were in a state that I know very well. And I sent the vet that I trust, and that guy is he's a good man. But again, he functions from confidence. He disagreed with me, but he still did the test and then came over back and apologized to me. So, I mean, that doctor is such a class act. I adore him. So again, please don't see animal communication as an event. Don't see it as an entertainment. You're missing out on so much. So work with me, connectedenergyhealing.com. I'll get you talking with your animals in a credible, good way. I will also help adjust any health problems or any behavioral issues that you're having that go beyond the behaviorist, go beyond the trainer. And I work in collaboration with trainers and behaviorists. And when you add me as a component, the behavior change or the behavior modification or new behaviors are much more easily adopted, and the animals get better quicker because I'm able to really figure out what's going on from the energetic, the emotional, and the physical aspect. Thanks again for joining me on Connected Live on this snowy day. I am now going to take my lunch break and go back outside with my two big boys and have some fun in the snow. You guys take great care, and remember, animal communication is so much more than just a novelty aha, and only work with the best. Don't do the store thing. Don't work with people that don't understand animal psychology or animal health, because you're limiting so much of what you're paying for. ConnectedEnergyHealing.com. Looking forward to working with you, and I hope you guys have a great day. Be safe out there, Oklahoma. If you can't drive in this stuff, just stay home and have a hot chocolate. Okay, have a good day. Bye-bye.